super excited to introduce to you guys Jann Franklin, who has agreed to be with us tonight. Oh, I'm so excited. So, very quickly, thank you guys so much for joining us live. So y'all know you get 20 points for joining live. Be thinking about questions. I'm going to start out. I'm going to ask some questions and all of that to Jann, but I know you guys have some great questions, and I can't wait to hear those. So we'll have plenty of time for that. If you are watching the replay, which this will be up on the group, I always forget the names for things, the group page, it will be up there within the next 24 hours. So if you're watching the replay, you get 10 points. As long as you comment, you got to comment or I won't know you watched it. So there you go. And if you have other questions for Jann that we don't ask tonight, you are going to have 2 more chances to chat with her this week. So tomorrow we'll have a special Friendly Friday where we'll get a chance to find out a little bit more about how to interact with Jann after this week. And then on Saturday, get your book selfies ready. And Saturday evening, I'm going to do my best to do a live in the group to announce this week's winner because Jann is so graciously giving an autographed copy of her book. So that's all the stuff. And now I am so excited to have you with us. Thank you for being here, Jann.
Thank you for inviting me. That was so exciting. I don't know if y'all know how the authors get picked, but I got an email asking me to be part of this. And that was such an honor, I feel like, because out of all the authors she could have picked, I was one of them. So that was neat. Thank you.
Well, and I will say, I found you and your books on Instagram. That's how I saw it. And I was like, oh, she's a Louisiana author. And then I was like, oh, Cozy Mysteries. Oh, this sounds really great. And I ordered your book and I was like, oh, I love this. And I was like, oh, of course, she would be perfect. So there we go. There's the backstory. Y'all know it now. Oh my goodness. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start off and Jann, will you please remind us a little bit more about who you are and tell us a little bit about the book you're giving away. And if you would share either a favorite scene, line, or character.
Well, I am a transplant. I spent a majority of my adult life in Texas, before that Arkansas, and married a Louisianian who had always said when we retire, we're moving to Louisiana, and the time it seems so far away. And then, of course, it happened. And we had to move this tiny little town from a town of over 100,000. And it was such a huge culture shock. I was kind of freaking out in a good way, though. I mean, we're 30 minutes from Shreveport, which is about 150,000. But still, you got to drive 20 minutes to a grocery store, 30 minutes to a decent, shopping center. And so I had a lot of, misadventures, and I started writing a column for the weekly newspaper in Mansfield. And it's been a lot of fun and I really enjoy it. But there would be things where I'd hear these crazy stories and I think, but what if that had happened? And so that's where I kind of got the idea to write books, because, with fiction, you can make up anything you want. But the funny thing is, out of all the characters I've written, I always have people in the town, 300 people. Actually, I think we're down to 246. Yeah, out in this town, still have people come up to me. I just read your book, and I know exactly who Ev is, or who Shorty is, or who the victim was. Like, I know who you base that on. And I'm thinking, I didn't really base it on one specific person, but they are just so convinced that they know exactly who it is, because, it's a tiny town. So, but I would have to say, I got into the cozies because I love mysteries. I'm not real good at writing romance. I'm not real good at reading romance. I'm always like, oh no, they're going to get together. But the mystery I love, because you don't always know who it's going to be, even though you think you like to try to figure it out. We always love to do that, but we don't always know for sure. So I enjoy doing the mysteries. My favorite, gosh, I know y'all are reading the first one, but I have to tell you, my favorite has been the third one, Fruitcake and Fraud. It took place at Christmas time, and So I don't know if y'all are team fruitcake or, anti-fruitcake. Most people are not big fans. And that's kind of where that came from because there is a lady in the town that bakes fruitcakes for selected people, and nobody likes fruitcakes. And so one Christmas, somebody steals all 82 fruitcakes and she hires Evan Shorty to find out. And they kind of are like, well, I don't really want to know because we don't want to find them because we don't, and people are going to be mad at us if we find them. And there's a gazillion suspects because anybody could have taken them because, it's like a community service. Here, get rid of the fruitcake. So there's also a murder thrown into it too. But I really had a good time with that because I've been there. I've gotten fruitcake as a gift and said, thank you very much, and thrown it in the trash. So,
Yeah. I remember, so my dad was a pastor and we would get gifts like that quite often. Now he actually liked it, so
oh,
good for him, but he was the only one.
well, there is a little story in there, and this actually happened. One of my friends lived in a duplex, and their neighbor would always bring over a fruitcake. And every year she'd say, thank you so much, and throw it in the trash. And one day, her 8-year-old answered the door, and the woman said, here's your fruitcake. And Evan said, I'm just going to do you a favor. I'm just going to throw it in the trash right now because that's where it's going to end up. And it caused some problems a little bit with the neighborliness, but I just thought, okay, that is such what an 8-year-old would do. So that's in there too. And then I got to thinking, she's not the only one that make the fruitcake and the people that, there's other people she baked the fruitcakes for, and there's probably other people that don't want them either. And so it just kind of grew from that. And then I started researching like what kind of animals like to eat fruitcake. And so one of the suspects raises hogs, and so hogs will eat pretty much anything. So maybe he stole the fruitcake. There's a guy that started selling fruitcakes in his stores. He normally sells king cake, but he's now expanded to fruitcake. So, he might have stolen the fruitcake so people, would feel comfortable buying, the fruitcake. Because apparently the lady, if she sees you in the store buying a fruitcake, she's like, oh no, you don't need to buy one. I've got plenty. So there's a lot of funny things with that. But fruitcake is very hit or miss. So that's been my favorite for sure.
That's great. So I'm curious, do you have any family who are in law enforcement or friends or any kind of inspiration in that way?
No family. We do have a friend who is a former deputy sheriff because, again, our small town, we don't have a police force. In fact, if you look at the village budget that gets handed out at the village council meeting, there's a line that says police chief, but it says 0. And I'm always saying I need to try to petition to be the police chief. I mean, because there's no salary, but that's okay. Wouldn't it be fun to be the police chief and go around writing tickets? And, I think it would be, I'll take bribes. I don't know. It'd be funny. But no, we do, like I said, we have a friend that's a deputy. And I was talking to a lady in the coffee shop she's a new sheriff's deputy, and I was asking her about her career, and she said, I have friends in Shreveport, and they shoot their guns every week and chase suspects. And she said, but I don't have any of that excitement. She said, my very first call out right out of the academy, she said, I had to get a cow off the highway. I said, I bet they didn't teach you that in the police academy. She said, no, they didn't. And I said, what did you do? She said, well, I got behind the cow and I started turn on my lights and flashed them. And then I blew the siren a few times and kind of just moved the cow down the road and onto a side street. And I said, so would it be fair to say you catch more cows than criminals? And she said, that would be fair. So, but I do have, friends that work in law enforcement. So a lot of times I'll say, okay, I have this situation. What would you do? And like, what would be protocol? But for the most part, it's more about, Evan Shorty solving the case, and the police, for obvious reasons, don't want to really help them because, that would make them look bad. So
There you go. That's great. Well, now you also have another series, and that is the Small Town Girl life series. So, why do you enjoy writing that one? And do you prefer one genre or the other?
Good question. So when I first started writing, I started the small town girl life, and it's a lady that came from a big city. I mean, came from a small town, ran to the big city, which was totally me. Her husband says, "I'm so tired of big city life. Let's move to the country." And so it's her fish out of water story, and I loved it. And every chapter in there is a story that's kind of based on stuff that's happened in my life. And I wrote the second one and decided to go independent. And I sent it to an editor, and she said, "There's no plot." And I said, "But it's just her life. Life doesn't have a plot." She said, "This doesn't work. There's nothing going on. There's no mystery. There's no romance." And I said, "Well, they're married. That's a different kind of romance, keeping romance alive in your marriage while you've got kids at home." And she said, "And nobody drinks." And I said, "Well, there are people in this world that don't drink. I mean," and she wrote it right by the children's birthday party. And I was thinking, what kind of life do you lead, lady? Because I've never had a drink at a birthday parties, but kids. So anyway, we parted ways. I was like, I don't think she really gets me. But as I went and I was trying to market, you go to Amazon and you type in romance or cozy mystery or thriller, and you type in small town life, you get a lot of romance. And I couldn't figure out, what genre is it? And I talked to a publicist or like we're doing an interview, and they'd say, "Well, what genre?" So I thought, I got to have a genre. And apparently nobody wants to conform to mine, so I'm going to have to conform to theirs. So I kept that small town quirkiness vibe and added a murder. So I always tell people, if you like a dead body in your book, you'll like the small town girl mysteries. If you don't like dead bodies, try the small town girl life.
That's a good way to say it.
And in
Genres
my
are tricky.
exactly. And in my fifth book that is coming out in July, my heroine from Small Town Girl Life, Jen Guidry, she is on trial for murder. And they hire Evan Shorty to prove her innocence. So my editor had said, "I think it would be fun if you would bring the two together in a book." And I said, "I think that would be fun too. They live in the same town. They go to the same church. Why not?" So that was a lot of fun. A lot of
That's
fun.
fantastic. I love that there's that crossover.
They do it on television all the time. Why not in books,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So back to, and I always think that I say this wrong, but muffaladas. Hopefully, I said that okay. I'm also a transplant. I'm trying really hard to fit in, but anyway, and murder. In this book, you have a very special four-legged creature, and I'm fond of four-legged creatures. I have my cat is laying right here. Y'all can actually see his butt by the book.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I have two dogs as well. So Zydeco. Zydeco is the dog, and I would like to know how he was inspired.
Well, cozies that have animals really sell, and I'm not a cat person. No offense. I don't hate cats. I'm more of a dog person. And we actually have a dog that wandered up to our front door and wouldn't leave. And my husband kept saying, "Don't feed her and she'll leave." Well, she didn't leave, so I fed her, and 10 years later, she's our dog. So that's kind of where that was inspired too. And I love the word Zydeco. I think it's such a fun name. And, they call him Zy for short, or Zydeco. It's just a cool thing. But I was going to tell you, Joy, so also being a Louisiana transplant, I had a friend, and she said, she texted me though, "Let's meet in Shreveport at this restaurant." And so I was telling my husband, "Oh, I'm going to go to the frozen pierogi." And he's like, "I've never heard of that." And I said, "Oh yeah, it's frozen pierogi." And I go in there, and my friend says, "It's Piro."
No, there are so many things. So my husband grew up here, and there are so many things that I tell him, like, this isn't normal. Like, this is just here, like in this little corner of Southeast Louisiana. Like, it's just here. Like, nobody else does this or says this or whatever. It's
No.
fantastic. I love it.
Well, the way it's spelled, I thought it was a pierogi, and I've heard of a pierogi. I think it's a sandwich.
It's like a
So
like a dumpling, like a
yeah,
potato filled.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I thought, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. It's frozen, but okay. Yeah. It's in a pirogue, for y'all who don't know, it's a little flat boat that they use a pole. I'm sure you've seen it on TV where it's a flat boat and you use a pole to go through, and it's like in the swamps and it's shallow. So very different, a dumpling versus a boat. Yeah. So,
Love
but
that.
no, I've never heard of a frozen boat either. So I feel like it was very misleading anyway. So
Yeah, I agree. That's an odd name. Just gonna say it. Oh, all right. So you have said that your character in your other series really is based off a lot of your life. But what about Eve? Eve? Wait, did you
Ev,
say it? Ev, is
Evangeline.
Evangeline. Yes. So what about her? Does she have any characteristics or any things that come from you?
Yes, she's very introverted. She prefers books over people. And but she can be very sarcastic. And actually, I think I put that in the Facebook post. When after I started writing the Small Town Girl Life, my dad reads my books. He's 86, and he said, could you maybe put a character based on me in one of your books? And I said, sure. So you read about him, Muffled as a Murder, but he's the retired veterinarian. It's her dad, and but her brother and her dad together make up my dad. Like, just that whole, what do you mean you need a new washer? You have the money in the bank, right? You've been saving up for that rainy day. And my dad's also a retired veterinarian. His nickname is Skeeter Bergeron. He thinks it's so fun. He tells everybody, my daughter's books are so great. Oh, and by the way, the character Skeeter Bergeron, that's based on me.
That's so great. Oh, I love that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, so we're about halfway done with our time. So I do have a couple of other questions for you, but I'm going to hold them because I would love to hear what questions Faith and Lisa might have for you.
Oh, great.
Not to put you all on the spot, but if you have them. And you can either just say or you can type them in the chat, whichever way you're comfortable with.
So what was your hardest adjustment in coming to Louisiana?
Oh, goodness.
That's a great question.
Well, the food, because the rest of the world eats potatoes and bread, and Louisiana we eat lots of cornbread, cornmeal, griddle cakes, lots of rice instead of potatoes, and that's been a huge adjustment. Everything has rice in it. And then crawfish. I'm like, what is the deal with crawfish? They're in a ditch. Why would you want to eat them?
Do you like crawfish?
Yeah. I do love crawfish now. And I did. Oh, so fun fact. So South Louisiana are the Cajuns. I'm sure y'all have heard of the Raging Cajuns, but they're actually originated from Acadia, which is in Canada, and they loved lobster up there and ate it. Well, the British came in and kicked them out, and so they all got displaced down to Louisiana. Well, there aren't a lot of lobster in southern Louisiana, and they saw these little animals in the ditches and said, you know what? I think we can eat that. Well, I find that hilarious. Like, who looks in a ditch and says, that looks good to eat. I think I'm going to try that.
So Jann, I grew up in South Carolina.
Oh,
When I got out of college, I lived in Austria for a year.
wow.
And then when I got married, we moved to Louisiana. And I tell everybody it was a bigger culture shock to move to Thibodeau, Louisiana, than it was to move to Horn, Austria. And I mean, it just was.
It is. They don't think they're any different than anybody else, or they're better. But I'm like, y'all do everything so backward. Not backwards, just so different. It's like you can't call things by the name everybody else in the world calls it, because they're have French origin. Like go vote, GEAUX. Can't you just say go vote? I mean,
No, they think they're cute.
oh, and Mardi Gras, I mean, that's like half a year practically. They say, oh, it's just a few, but it's like all year long. You see people with beads and masks and king cake, and I'm like, y'all just you love a good celebration.
That's what it is. It's the party. Everybody's looking forward to the parties. Well, are you done with us, Tolkien? He's had enough.
Yeah, and the irony about Mardi Gras is it's not from Louisiana, it's Mobile.
Yes, but don't tell people in Louisiana
Oh
That is
no,
true.
they will fight you, but
Yeah.
Mobilians will fight you back.
Yeah.
I was doing
It's
research.
actually from Europe. I mean, Mardi Gras is French, and Germany has it too. They call it Carnival.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
that's
And
true.
I didn't know
in
Germany had it.
Austria,
Yeah, the French brought it to Mobile.
yeah, but Austria calls it Fasching, but it's all the same thing. It's all the same day. It's based on the same part of the church calendar. So
Yeah, in Mobile, don't they? They throw moon pies off one of the buildings, I think, for celebration, which sounds kind of dangerous, but I'm sure people know that's happening. Moon pies, that was a whole new thing too. And I mean, Texas doesn't do that. Texas, they're all about chili and barbecue.
Brisket.
Yeah, brisket. But I'm like, moon pies, and okay, yeah. And they all come in flavors, but I do love Zapp's potato chips. I will give them that. That's good stuff.
So that comes from you, Shorty's love of Zaps. Does that come from you?
It
Yeah.
does.
Shorty
And
can put away
does-
some Zaps. I'm just saying.
Does he though? And he doesn't gain any weight. That's so annoying.
No.
Oh, and I've actually had a couple people say, I just find Shorty so irritating. And it kind of hurts my feelings.
Well, yeah, I love him. I do. I think he's adorable. Like, I want to hang out with him in real life.
He has a good heart.
He does. He does. And he just loves food.
He does. Oh, he loves food. He's very, very appreciative of all things food, and Louisiana food especially. So, and that's been fun too, sticking in all the different references to food, and my editor, actually, she lives in Iowa, and she said, we were driving to Texas to visit family, and we stopped in a gas station, and they had Zapp's potato chips. She said, Jan, I thought you made that up. So for Christmas, of course, I had to send her some Zapp's potato chips.
That's too funny. We one of my best friends and we met a girl online, and she's from California, and when we were in college she came down for spring break, so we of course took her to Gulf Shores, so the whole week down there. And she was like, okay, all of my California friends are going to want to know if y'all indeed deep fry everything. And I was like, some stereotypes are not true. That one is absolutely true. And the funny thing was, we took her all, got her all the seafood, and we made her try fried dill pickles. And she was like, when she left to go back to California a week later, she was like, I hate you because I've been craving fried dill pickles and I cannot get them here and nobody knows what I'm talking about. And I was like, come back to Alabama, baby girl. I don't know what to tell you. It was so funny, but yeah, the food down south is a whole culture in and of itself. That's
And you really can fry pretty much anything.
Oh, you can. If you can batter it, if the batter will stick to it, you can fry it.
Well, shoot, ice cream. They fry ice cream. I wouldn't have thought that could happen, but they made it happen. So yes, I think it is true. You can literally fry anything.
Well, do y'all have any other questions for Jann?
I do actually, talking about characters, because sometimes I'm very character driven when I read and when I write. So if it can be the best, it could be the best written story of all time, but if I don't care about the characters, I'm not. And then contra-wise, I will follow these characters through some ridiculousness if I care about them. Are there any characters that particularly get on your nerves? Because I know as writers, like, your characters tend to kind of have minds of their own sometimes and go off on little rabbit trails, and you kind of have to like pull them back. So do you have any characters that particularly you just go, would you stop doing that? And you have to kind of rein in, or are they all kind of just everywhere for
They
you?
are well, I can't. So the one that just came out, Sweet Tea and Suspects. I can't give away the ending, but let's just say Ev does some things in there that I didn't like it, but that's what she did, and that's the way the story went. And I was like, "Dang, girl, it's not going to turn out well."
Well, now, see, you've got us hooked.
Right.
So I just finished book 2, and now I'm like, oh, I gotta hurry up and read 3 and 4 so I can read 5.
Well, let me know about the fruitcake because, yeah, that was funny. My husband and I were sitting around going, okay, how many things can you do with fruitcake? All right, let's think about this. Because, in a cozy, you normally have 5 to 8 suspects. I don't do 8. I feel like 8 is way too confusing. 5 is hard enough. And I don't know if you had this issue, Joy, in the second one, but I know I had, like my dad said, he's like, well, you introduced all the suspects together because they all live together. They're oil field workers. He said it was kind of confusing at first. He said I got it, it was okay as I went along, but initially it was like, oh, I'm not sure who all these people are.
Yeah, that is always challenging. And then I have made the mistake before of having names that were far too similar, and I was like, oh, I gotta change this because that makes it even more confusing. So yeah. But you did a good job. Like I figured out who was who after
Okay.
a little bit. Yeah, for sure. That's great.
Well, and I started I found this book. I don't know if y'all probably cannot see it.
Oh, cool.
But it's who is it by? Nancy Cohen. It's an Agatha Award finalist, but it's writing the cozy mystery. And I took I just started my new series, and I took some tips from it. But I'm trying to make, and then I had a couple of criticisms with Ev, and as an author, you try not to take it personally, but you try to think maybe I should, get something from it. And one of them said, well, a couple of them just said, Ev seemed like more of a sounding board. She didn't seem that interesting a character on her own. It was more about channeling the other characters and being more like the voice of them, or basically being the straight man. So my new character, Ro Bergeron, is actually Ev's cousin, but she lives in a totally different town. She's pretty different. She's 30 and never been married, never had a job, lived with her grandparents, raised by her grandparents, and they've passed away and they left her a house. And so she's decided to open a bed and breakfast for dogs. But she can't cook and she doesn't own any dogs. So she decided to go out, not get one dog, but 3 dogs because, why not? And has been struggling. I'm just now finishing, I'm starting on chapter 9. And she's struggling with trying to make a breakfast dish before her guests show up because she can't even boil an egg. And as her best friend says, you can't keep a plant alive. How in the world are you going to keep 3 dogs alive, much less keep these guests alive over the weekend, So she's having some fun with that. And so she is more of a stretch because she is just so, I was never that person. I was never that, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life, so I'll just not do anything kind of person. So that's been a challenge to make her seem sympathetic and not like a, a loser that just takes advantage of her grandparents.
I'm excited about that new series. That sounds so funny. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, do y'all have any other questions? I'm gonna see. Let's see. What have I got here? I have two other questions. So, oh yes, definitely want to ask this one. So, in addition to reading your books, of course, how can readers engage with you?
Oh, great question. Um, well, I mean, I have the newsletter, of course, and at like this month's newsletter. So I do a little contest every month because I think it's fun. So, like 1 month, you had to tell me if a food truck rolled into your neighborhood, what would kind of food would you want? So people email me, and I would love. And so we'll just start a dialogue back and forth about, oh, that's fun, and oh, I've never heard of that food, or so this month I said, hey, I'm writing this new series, and I need some breakfast recipes that are pretty simple, not too challenging. And so they by entering the contest, they email me with their favorite recipe. But I'm like, wow, I've already got some really good ones. So, but that's been fun. And so the newsletter is good. My blog, you could so I think I mentioned, yeah, I write a weekly art column for the newspaper, and it's just about small town life. And so I post all the articles on my blog, which is on my website, and Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, you did. See, and I'm excited because I kind of started ramping up my Instagram because I was like, gosh, I feel really old. I should probably be on Instagram, So I'm glad I kind of ramped that up.
Well, it was great because I could buy your book straight through there. I was like, this is fantastic. So I'm going to have to talk to you because that is in my future. I hope, like, being able to do that. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I think we have enough time. I'm going to ask you this last question. And that is, and I'm interested to hear what the authors say about this. If we get a chance for everybody to answer this one. What is the one thing about the business of book publishing that readers might be interested to know?
Ooh. Well, I would say that authors really depend on reviews. And I can't and I, as an author and as an introvert, I hated asking for reviews. I feel like it's almost like asking for money, you know. But I've had so many people say, I never thought about it. But I think as consumers, I don't know about y'all, but when I go on Amazon or anywhere, the first thing I do is look at the reviews, and if they're not good, I'm not going to buy the product. So as authors, I think we all struggle with, you know, I would love to have more reviews. And so I would say I'm trying to do better too, but like review the hairbrush I just bought and all that other good stuff, but especially the books I buy. In fact, I'm in this little author group, um, and we've all and I came up with the idea actually to say, hey, let's all buy each other's ebooks and read them and post reviews because we can always use more reviews, and that helps you get to know each other better too.
That's a
So
great
please, 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 y'all post reviews of your books. And if you are an author, like Lisa mentioned, you're an author, ask for reviews definitely because a lot of people just don't think about it.
That is true. And it really does make a big difference. I mean, to readers. And then there are certain, you always see books that win awards. Well, certain awards, they won't even consider you unless you have a certain number of reviews. And then they also have some other criteria. Some of them do, not all of them, but some of them. And so it really is a big deal. So yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. All
I
right.
actually wrote a newspaper article about it too, and the title was "Please, Sir, I Want Some More," and I talked about Oliver and how he had so little, but he just wanted more. And I said, I think authors feel like that. It's like I only have a few reviews, please. So
Yes, so true. Oh, well, Jen, thank you so, so much for being with us tonight and this whole week. It's been amazing. I've had so much fun seeing the pictures of your characters. Zydeco's adorable. Sorry, I just love dogs. And thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. And I'll see you in the group with posts tomorrow and Saturday. And then Sunday, we get a brand new featured author for that week.
Yay! And who's our brand new featured author?
Cassie Greitman. I think
Oh,
I said
okay.
her name right. Yes. And I have actually met her in person, and she lives in Ohio. I haven't met you in person yet, and you live right here in Louisiana.
Well, it's a big state.
It is. Oh,
Good
yay.
deal. I look forward to that. That'll be fun.
I'm excited about it. So, well, thank you guys again for being here tonight, and I will see you soon, and let's share the read.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.